Okay, we are now live. Let me just assign you to guest one. There you are. Let me turn this countdown timer off. Frames and countdown. Let me turn this off. I always got to turn the audio off for the computer as well because... Now, this is ridiculous that I don't have this up there. There we go. There we go. There's my background. I don't know why that didn't come in, but it should have come in with the full background. So everybody, Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live, and today we have Mr. John Chappell from digitalrebellion.com.
Hey, Richard.
.com, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right, yeah.
It's collaborate.tv, but digitalrebellion.com.
That's right, yeah.
Now, I've always been amazed at the amount of tools. We're going to go over some of the tools today. The amount of tools that you have. How big of a team do you have developing these tools?
Well, it started out just with me, and I still do a large chunk of the work. But yeah, we kind of, I mean, the pandemic was, it wasn't really much of a problem for us because we were already pretty remote and spread out. So it's something, it kind of varies. It's something that we expand and contract as needed.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you have like people that you use part-time when you need them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And freelance.
And freelance. That's what I meant. Mm-hmm. That's what I meant, freelance. So
yeah, but I'm kind of, all the code goes through me eventually.
Oh, it does?
Just to make sure. Yeah, just to make sure, you know, like standards are met.
Right. Well, that's true. That's true. Mm-hmm. So is that what so you're the coder, basically?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. But, you know, I do a lot of other stuff as well. I do support as well.
You do support. Now, I don't know. Are you an editor as well?
I was. Back in the day. Nowadays, I don't have a lot of time.
But you know how to edit, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. As I said, I was back in the day, but yeah. Nowadays, I tend to post supervise and color.
Okay. Oh, you do color then?
Yeah, in Resolve.
Resolve. So, did I see any support for your stuff in Resolve? I've seen Premiere and Avid.
There is sporadic Resolve support. Some of our apps support Resolve, and some of them are agnostic, so they just support any app.
Right, right. That's what I keep. You know, I know Final Cut Pro, of course, but you also Premiere and Avid, and boy, they're three different beasts, aren't they? I mean,
oh yeah, definitely.
Premiere on the PC has got to be completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And then Avid. Premiere, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, yeah. I guess it's Avid that's kind of more the mythical beast because Premiere is close enough to Final Cut 7 to be fairly familiar.
Okay.
Even on a technical level.
Well, what about Premiere on the PC? That's another.
Well, right now, we're our products that support Premiere are only on the Mac.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, we have apps like Post Haste though that are agnostic on PC.
Right. Right. Excellent. So we're going to let's talk about Post Haste to start with. Mm-hmm. So that is an app. Let me see if I have that right. That is an app that I know I've used it for making templates. Mm-hmm. Right. So yeah. Does it make templates? I don't remember, the library or the event or the project or all three?
It can do that. I don't know if this is, I can't remember off the top of my head if this is still an issue in the latest versions of Final Cut Pro 10. I remember there were some issues with cloning libraries in the early days.
Right.
So generally the way I've done it is with an XML file.
Okay.
So I have an XML file in the template, and then I bring that in whenever I create the new project. That's how I've done it.
Okay.
I haven't, as I said, I haven't looked into it for a while. Possibly that's no longer an issue, like with later versions of Final Cut. I'd have to double check that.
Right. So all the times, have I ever met you at NAB? Have you been to NAB?
Yeah, a couple of times. I can't recall if we met in person.
Like maybe at the thing that Steve Martin used to do, that supper, like at the Hard Rock
No,
Cafe.
no, I never went to those just because, being on the floor all day, I was just exhausted. By the
Okay.
time the evening came along.
Okay. But you never been to the summit though, right? Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, have you? Not in the last.
No, I've never been to that.
Well, I'm just curious why. Because your products are very, very beneficial to Final Cut Pro. I mean, there's for Final Cut Pro editors.
I don't know. I've just never gotten around to it. It's in San Francisco, isn't it?
Cupertino typically.
Oh, Cupertino. Oh, okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But this year,
yeah, I've never.
This year it's virtual, of course, like everything else is.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just doing it. As a matter of fact, it's a week from Monday is when it starts. But this year, yeah, typically we went to Cupertino, which I really enjoyed meeting everybody in person. I mean, that was, and we stayed in, most of the people stayed in the same hotel.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got up in the morning, you went to the lobby, everybody's down there having coffee, reading the paper, just jabbing about Final Cut Pro stuff or other industry news. But this year
awesome.
This year we're not doing that, of course. Nobody can get into the country.
So are you involved in that in the organization?
I'm a media sponsor. I don't do the presentations. I mean, I've been on a panel or two. You know why? It's too much work. I mean, when I teach for Future Media Concepts. I teach for them in Washington. I've taught for them in Chicago. Final Cut Pro stuff, of course, because I'm an Apple certified trainer for Final Cut Pro. But I'm also kind of a perfectionist. And when I do a class, you have to stand up in front of them for 8 hours a day for 2 or 3 days in a row.
Right.
So you got to have a lot of stuff prepared. So I'd have my notes and, things and try to anticipate questions they might ask and had links to stuff about that. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
so
I once taught, I once taught a class of like 18-year-olds editing, and yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard teaching.
Yes, I taught high school boys at Latin. What was it called? It was a private school in Baltimore. I taught them Final Cut Pro back the classic days, and it's there's a lot of activity, a lot of energy in the room. Yeah. And one of the things I remember telling them is, if I see untitled for your projects, you're gonna get a demerit. Your grade's going to go down one level. No untitled, untitled. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But they were a pretty good group of guys. I have no idea what they got into as they graduated, but normally the Final Cut classes or the motion classes or whatever that you teach as an Apple certified trainer, you're in front of the class. They have 2 or 3 days of 8 hours a day. That you're in front of the class. And some of that's Q&A, of course, but the rest of the stuff is just, just training out of the Apple has their own manual. Let me pull up your website. Let's go over some. Do you have any of your apps, not Collaborate, but of your apps, is one more popular than the other? Is there a couple that are more popular? I'm sure not Cut Notes, but I'm sure that I have Pro Media Tools, Pro Maintenance Tools we're going to go over, but Post Haste is one of the free ones, right?
Yeah. So, I would say, sorry, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I would say Post Haste and Cut Notes have kind of a cult following, for want of a better word. They're very, very popular. And so I'd say that Post Haste is our most downloaded, most used app.
Oh, is that right? No, so I have it up right now you can see it the screen. So post haste, organize your project with customizable templates. This is a fantastic, fantastic idea. When I talk to developers who develop these things, it's like, I'd like to see this in Final Cut natively. I've been talking about that for a long time. Because
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
With post haste, I, make the templates, and before post haste, I would just do them natively. I'd make an empty template in Final Cut. For example, one of the things that I did was I like organizing my media in the Finder before I make a Final Cut Pro library template. I like naming things, keeping them organized in folders at the Finder level. And one of the main reasons I do that is because I use NeoFinder for my database. And I have literally dozens and dozens and dozens of hard drives that I store stuff on besides my main RAID. And I can go to NeoFinder and search for a title of a clip, and it'll show me where it is, and I can see what library it's on, what hard drive it's on. So I like organizing in the Finder level. So people used to say, well, how do you import into Final Cut and then organize in the Finder? I said, because I have a dummy Final Cut Pro library I just import clips into. And I pull them out of there at the Finder level and organize them in the Finder. But one of the other things NeoFinder, not NeoFinder, but it's another application I have called Pathfinder.
Oh yeah, I use Pathfinder.
Oh, do you? One of my favorite features of Pathfinder is the ability to turn a package into a folder. So the Final Cut Pro, so the Final Cut Pro package, instead of clicking on it, was it reveal in Finder? You have to jump through windows and stuff. You can actually turn it into a disclosure triangle. The library, cool. The library, not the Final Cut Pro app, I'm sorry. The libraries, instead of being, closed little package, you can turn them into a folder structure. You have a little disclosure. Very handy. Very handy. So I use that all the time so I can go in my libraries and look at things and pull media out, make copies or whatever. And usually it doesn't mess up Final Cut too bad. I know Final Cut, so it used to be that I couldn't rename clips in the Finder. It would mess up the database. Now it seems like something happened and I can. I can actually rename a clip in the Finder. Tell me, have you seen that?
I hadn't noticed that personally, but I mean, there are several apps that can do that. Like if you have something open in TextEdit and then you rename it, like if you look in the title bar of TextEdit, it will say the new file name. So like apps are capable of getting that information. So I guess it's plausible that would be a feature.
What used to happen is I would rename something in the Finder, Final Cut would lose track of it. The clip would be offline. I'd have to go back and relink it. But I think now, for some reason, when I change something in the Finder level, the link is still there. It doesn't rename it in Final Cut, but it does. The link still stays. I don't know when that happened.
Yeah, as I said, I've never tried that or noticed that, but yeah, it's definitely plausible that could be a feature. Yeah. Okay.
So let's go back to your web page. Here we're on Post Haste. Download for the Mac, download for the PC. This one is free for making templates and organization. This one's been around for quite a while. As a matter of fact, when I was researching your products today, I was surprised that Collaborate's been around for how long? A long time, right?
Since 2013, yeah.
2013, yeah. I found you, when I put it in the search, I found you did a LACPUG event in 2013 talking about Collaborate.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? Wow, I had no idea it was around that long.
Yeah.
So let's go over Cut Notes here, webpage. Cut Notes, tell us about Cut Notes. It's for the iPad, right? I have that as well.
Yeah, so cut notes is a tool. It's designed for use in a screening. So you're watching a screening of the movie and there's some kind of problem and you want to write it down, but you got to write down the time code and you got to stare down at the keyboard, and then you look up and a whole minute's gone past and you missed it. So cut notes is
Right,
designed
exactly.
to save as much time as possible and limit the amount of time you spend looking down to write notes.
Which is fantastic. So how does that work with the markers and stuff? Is that exportable for Final Cut? John froze up here a second. Let's see if he comes back.
Cut and Premiere and we've got solutions for multiple apps.
So it does. It is. You can use it for Final Cut to export it.
Yep.
So that's a great feature. Markers. Mm-hmm. How much information can you enter in the marker? Can you enter like a title for the marker? In cut notes. In cut notes, you can do markers. Can you? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can add. It says right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So the buttons, you can set up preset buttons if you're making the same kind of notes. Like the mix is too loud here. If you're constantly saying that,
right,
you can make it into a button. So you just tap that button and it automatically puts a note there.
Okay, so all these buttons are customizable, obviously. You can do whatever you want with those.
And you can type manually, yeah.
The idea is to do it quickly while you're screening something.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So let's go over. I have Cinplay too. And Cinplay is a media player. That's what that is, right? For the iPad?
Yeah.
Or is it Mac?
We have an iPad version. We also have a Mac version as well.
Okay. I think I have both of those as well.
And what's handy about the Mac version is that it has all sorts of note-taking features and annotation features. You can draw straight over the image as well. Has timecode overlays and safe area overlays. Has a whole lot of it's kind of like QuickTime Player, but with a lot of professional features and note-taking on top of it.
Sometimes I wonder why Apple doesn't develop some of these things like QuickTime Player. When they had QuickTime Player X or whatever, 10, you lost features from the classic version.
Yeah, I think it's just, kind of they say like the 80-20 rule. You make features that people use 80% of the time, or 80% of the users use.
Right.
As a way of kind of simplifying it.
Okay. So we have a question here from Man Cave Productions. How does the app sync to the time code?
Okay, well, it varies depending on the host app. So we have MIDI sync for apps that support MIDI, like Final Cut Pro 10.
Right.
Adobe Premiere.
Right.
And we also have MIDI timecode support as well for Pro Tools. And for apps like Avid and Final Cut, we have plugins.
Oh,
and the idea is you put it. I'll be honest, it's not the smoothest workflow because we definitely prefer native support within the app. But you put it on your timeline, and then it's kind of like a transparent plugin. So you put it above everything, and then as you navigate around, as you play, it'll just show what's underneath the video and broadcast the time code to cut notes.
I see. All right, let's go back to the web page and let's look at some of these. These are some of the incredible tools that you have that I'm not sure that people know about. Because when I talk about it, sometimes I'll see my video file got corrupted, my this got corrupted, And you have tools that when I tell people, they go, really? I say, yeah. These tools have been around for a while. Pull that back down. So quick fix complete. Is that a combination of the tools, some of the tools, or?
Yeah, quick fix is just an app that runs multiple tools at once. And the idea is you can set it to do everything with one button press. You can also set up keyboard shortcuts system-wide. So
Right.
when it doesn't matter if the app's open or not, whenever you press a certain keyboard combination, it'll run those fixes.
Gotcha. So this one, analyze crashes. Is that still working okay in Catalina, in Big Sur?
Yeah. Surprisingly, I always kind of thought Apple would eventually remove the information from
Right.
apps, kind of strip it out. They haven't done that. In
They
fact,
have not done.
Final Cut Pro 10 actually gives a lot more information about a crash than Final Cut Pro 7 did. So that's actually very handy.
Okay. Well, that is handy. Now, repair corrupt files, fix QuickTime movies and project files that can no longer be opened. Which project files? Final Cut Pro 10 and Premiere?
Yes.
So what kind of common things do you find that corrupts those files? Because people don't know. I mean, I don't know. Do you find something that's like, let's go with Final Cut, something that happens over and over again? Corruption?
To be honest, I'm not sure of how frequently those kind of things occur.
Okay.
But there's a lot of stuff you can fix with a very basic database restore, which is also kind of handy. Database repair, which is also kind of handy because it actually optimizes it. So our repair tools can actually sometimes make the project files smaller or make them perform faster or open faster.
Really? That's like you said, a database optimization situation. And then, of course, we have lookup error messages. So I have this list that I've had of things I want to see in Final Cut Pro 10 since the very beginning for 9 years now. It's ongoing. I change it, update it when I see things. They give some of the most cryptic, useless error messages that nobody knows what they're talking about. So you look up the error message for Final Cut and Premiere. Is that what it is?
And Avid.
And Avid too.
Avid is the worst in that department.
Well, I was going to say,
they have the worst error messages.
Do they really? Final Cut, some of them are just ridiculous. They have error messages. You know what I mean? They're just, that doesn't tell you anything. They have a lightning bolt or something going through. I don't know what that is.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But which ones, is it easier to work with Final Cut Pro? I guess, is it the XML there too that you're working with, or?
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff with XML among our apps.
Okay. Manage plugins.
Yeah, that's really handy because it can manage them for multiple apps, and so you have a lot of different plugins in a lot of different folders, and the app kind of abstracts that away and presents all of them in a single interface. So that's really handy.
Well, that's extremely handy. So can you turn them on and off? I see the enabled thing.
Oh,
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I turn them off in Final Cut, for example, they won't show up in the effects browser?
That's right, yeah.
How do you turn them off? What is actually happening?
It's just moving them to a different folder. So we have a temporary folder, and then it moves them back again.
I see. Very, very, John, you're very sneaky. That's very clever, because that's what I do manually, right? I'll make a folder and pull things out and try to make, for example, I have a favorites folder that ones I use over and over for transitions, for effects. And I wish one of my things on my list is you could be able to drag and drop and organize transitions and effects inside Final Cut in each browser, like you can in the regular browser, right? You
Right.
can't. To this day, I mean, you can do it by putting them in a temporary folder, but I can't go into Final Cut and I like to go and make a folder, make a favorites folder, just drag this effect up there in Final Cut. And to this, Final Cut's 9 years old. I mean, Final Cut Pro 10 is 9 years old. It's going on 10. And you still can't do that?
Yeah, that would be a very simple feature for them to add.
It's amazing that can't be done at this point. So have you, as a developer, Apple announced publicly that they're giving developers who want to buy them the advanced Mac Mini that's running the Apple Silicon. I presume I'm just going to presume you have that. I don't know if you can.
I'll be honest. It didn't seem like a great deal.
Okay, for you
because yeah, they make you pay almost full price for it, and then you have to give it back.
But you don't get a refund back?
I don't think so.
Well, I would think if they make you give it back, I think it was $500 they said.
Yeah, it's like $500, and I think like they start at like $700. So you're paying almost the retail price, and then you have to give it back. So I was just waiting till they came out, and then I'm just going to buy one.
I see. So
yeah,
I was wondering how your apps are running on it. But to me, if I was a developer and I paid Apple $500 and I would have to give it back, I want my $500 back. It seems like it's a retainer. I mean, that's to me. I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems like it's a retainer.
Maybe I misunderstood. Yeah, I don't know. I just when I heard that, I thought that doesn't sound like a great deal. Well, I'll just wait till it comes out and buy one.
Yeah. Plus, it's
and
the
then
old.
I can keep it.
Yeah, well, that's true. So Apple. Speaking of that, Apple has an event next week, next Tuesday on the 10th. Yep. It's going to be everybody knows it's going to be the Mac event. I mean, everybody knows. I mean, everybody presumes it's going to be the Mac event, that they're going to introduce Apple Silicon. That'll be the first place they have Apple Silicon. I'm going to just guess that it's going to be the low-level Macs. It's not going to be like my Mac Pro sitting over here. My 16-core Mac Pro.
I think people are predicting it'll be laptops first. So probably pro, high-level MacBook Pros. But those will be the highest level machines. But I guess no desktops at this point. That's what people are predicting.
No, they said, I was back and forth on Twitter with some people, and they said specifically on the Apple press release that the Apple Silicon Mac's going to come out, then they're going to start a 2-year cycle from that point. So, I mean, up to 2 years. They might take less time. So at that point, if they need 2 years to get up to the Mac Pro, which is the top of the line, of course, that completely makes sense. Or the iMac Pro, right? Because that also uses Apple Xeon, the Intel Xeon chips. There's just no way an iPad chip's going to compete with this 16-core beast that I have. It just can't.
Right, yeah.
Not now.
I mean, yeah, I guess the thing about ARM is that, it's great for mobile because, it doesn't have all the features of like a server level chip. And so people are kind of saying, well, if they make it compete with a Xeon, that might take away a lot of the power advantages of ARM. I mean, it might still be better, but I guess people are saying that it might close the current gap a little.
Yeah, well, I expect whatever Mac comes out with Apple Silicon that is on par or a little bit better than the Intel version. I don't expect it to be leaps and bounds better than the Intel version. Not yet. I mean, 2 years from now, of course. Of course.
Right. But what I mean is, so the reason ARM is in pretty much every phone is because they're very power efficient. But, they had to cut some corners in some places.
Right.
And so, to get something to compete with a Xeon at that level, that's going to take away some of the advantages of ARM, which is like how much power it uses. But maybe on balance, it will still end up being a fair bit different than Xeon. I mean, Intel is kind of stagnating right now. They're kind of stuck on an architecture that they've had for years, and they can't seem to really progress beyond it very much. And
which is
AMD,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And AMD is currently, launching multiple new versions every year, it seems, and Intel's kind of giving like a 10% performance boost at best here and there,
So that's the same thing that happened with Steve Jobs, right? He got aggravated with, but AMD at the time, wasn't it? Was it AMD? No, PowerPC.
It was IBM, yeah.
And then at that point, he said, well, Intel's a better roadmap going forward. And now Apple's going back and say, well, Intel's roadmap is not good enough for us or whatever, for exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about Tuesday. So when Tim Cook talked at WWDC, one of the things, he said two things. He said, we have the first Apple Silicon Mac coming out later this year. He also said, we have Intel Macs, plural, in the pipeline that we're really excited about. Curiously, it's exactly the same thing that Steve Jobs said in 2005 at WWDC. When he made the switch from PowerPC to Intel, he used the same phrase, we have more PowerPC Macs in the pipeline, that we're excited about or is coming out. From 2005, June 2005 till the end of that year, 4 PowerPC Macs came out after Steve Jobs announced the switch to Intel in 2005. So far, we've only seen one Intel Mac, which was the iMac, which everybody was just raving about. All the reviews, they say this is a great machine. It's powerful. It's cost effective. It runs Final Cut Pro really well. So I'm wondering if there's going to be any Intels at this event Tuesday. And the way they would do that would be, here's the new iMac Pro. Here's the, it's an Intel machine. And then they're going to say, oh, one more thing, because that's the title of the event, one more thing. Then they would say, here's the Silicon Mac. I don't know, but it seems like they've been developing an Intel Mac it takes years, right? Doesn't it? To get everything up and running?
I think so, yeah. And they have to reserve manufacturing capacity in advance,
Exactly. So it would not surprise me to see 1 or 2 more Intel Macs at this event and the Silicon. So Tim Cook, all the times I've been around Apple, they're very, very specific when they say things. Everything is worked out. So Tim Cook said Intel Mac, Silicon Mac. We have our first Silicon Mac singular. He said singular. I'm not saying it's going to only be one, but he said that it was singular back then. And he said Intel Macs, plural, at that event. That's why I think there could be another Intel Mac coming out. But that's going to be an exciting event. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure of it. I do wonder what the sales of it will be like. I guess there are a lot of people who will just need a new laptop right now, and they just can't wait a year or two.
Right.
And then there'll be people who don't know the difference, I guess.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. But I personally will be avoiding buying the Intel ones.
I'm going to avoid buying the first generation of the Silicon ones.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's true.
Because it's not a very mature, on the Mac, on the iOS, yeah, they've had it for years and years, but not on Mac OS. That's
true, yeah.
So I'll put it this way. I'm not going to just buy it the first day. First off, I don't need it. Second off, I'm going to wait to see real world reviews of I'll be looking at a 16-inch MacBook Pro or the 15-inch, whenever it comes out. I have a 2019, so I'm certainly in no hurry to buy one, but I'll be waiting for the real world reviews to see what they say, performance-wise, new features? I mean, are there? I guess there's going to be features that the Silicon Mac has that the Intel doesn't have. Do you think, or is it just going to be performance?
I don't know about user-facing features. I mean, there might be kind of certain optimizations.
Okay.
At a low level.
So it might be just performance then.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that'll be interesting. I know they're going to have, at WWDC, they showed Final Cut Pro working on the Apple Silicon.
Mm-hmm.
The same, I guess it's the same Mac Mini that they gave developers. So we know there's a version of that coming out, but there's going to be an Intel version of Final Cut Pro and an Apple Silicon version going forward, because they've already said Universal 2 or whatever. I'm not sure if that's the way it works or whatever, but they've already said Universal 2, it'll be a dual, both Intel and Apple Silicon. And one of the other things Tim Cook said was, we will be supporting an Intel version of Mac OS for years, plural. So that means 2 generations past Catalina. Big Sur plus at least one more that they're going to be supporting Intel Mac OS. So that'll be curious going forward too, right? How that works out.
Yeah, I always expected Apple to support the Intel Macs for a fair while longer with Mac OS. I mean, the big question is whether third-party developers will. But I mean, in Xcode, it's literally like it was with PowerPC back in the day. It's literally like just a box that you tick. So
is that right? Is that all it was?
Yeah, it's low. I mean, for most software.
Okay.
But it's low effort enough that I think a lot of developers will just tick that box.
Well, are you talking about the iPad version of an app running on Mac?
No, I'm just talking about going from Intel to
Silicon.
ARM.
Oh, really? It's just a little checkbox that they have. So it goes one or the other. Because it's the same thing with...
Or both, yeah.
Or both. Okay. Okay. Because it's the same thing for iOS apps. If the developer wants their iOS, since it's Apple Silicon and Apple Silicon, if the developer wants an iOS app to run on Mac, it's a checkbox. It's a preference they can check. Because I have LumaFusion on all the time, and I always talk to them about getting LumaFusion on the Mac. And they, at one point, were looking at it, and then they decided against it. They said, no, really our home is the iPad. So, but they are going to check the box to allow LumaFusion to run on a Mac. That's going to be interesting because it's not a touch interface. Unless the new MacBooks are touch finally, right? Touchscreen?
They seem to be pretty against that.
They seem to be against it, but first off, I used a Windows one time, and I really liked it. I don't use it for everything. I don't touch the screen for everything, but like to play a QuickTime movie, I touch the screen. Or if I want to take something and drag it around, I touch the screen. So it's a combination. But I know people say they're against it. But first off, I'm sure they have one at Cupertino. I'm sure they have a touchscreen Macs, working. What is an iPad Pro with a keyboard?
Right. Yeah, you're right. Although kind of ironically, I have one of those. I have the iPad Pro with the keyboard, and to be honest, I use the trackpad.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
More than I do the touch screen.
But you can touch the screen.
Yes.
When I use my iPad, use my phone, I've done this multiple times. I'm on my MacBook Pro, and I'm touching the screen trying to get QuickTime to play, and I don't know. I said, "Why isn't this working?" And I said, "Wait a minute, it's not the." It's not the touchscreen. It's not the iOS. No, I understand, but I'm saying, like, also they have Sidecar now, right? You can do your iPad as an extended screen or whatever, and you can drag the mouse over. So the combination of the two, maybe not everything, but listen, Final Cut Pro looks like it could be a touchscreen device. Dragging clips from the browser down to the timeline.
Yeah, I've always said, like, ever since Final Cut Pro 10 came out in 2011, it looks like it's designed for a touch interface.
Right.
And so I always thought Final Cut Pro 10 will eventually be on the iPad at some point. And with Apple Mac switching to Apple Silicon, I think 80% of their work is done already.
But here's what I've heard though from multiple people: iOS and Mac OS are completely different. Not so Apple Silicon, yes, both.
Mm-hmm.
They're both the iPad and the Mac version, but
Mm-hmm.
iOS, which you need to run on the iPad, and Mac OS are completely different. Libraries and all kind of things are different. For example, Mac OS, I have hundreds and hundreds of plugins
Mm-hmm.
in Mac. How is that? How is a little, how is an iPad version of Apple Silicon with its 6 whatever gigabytes or not even that much of RAM going to handle hundreds and hundreds of plugins? Where's it going to store it? Where's it going to,
Yeah, it would definitely not be as capable as it is on the Mac. And there are certain, there's a lot of overlap between APIs that are available on iOS and Mac OS. But there are some, a few that are Mac exclusive.
Okay.
Just things that wouldn't apply on a handheld device.
Okay. So
So
it seems,
that's why I say like maybe 80% of the work's done. There's still like that extra 20% of.
and Apple has said repeatedly, every time they're asked, every WWDC they're asked, are you merging iOS and Mac OS? And they keep saying, no, we're not doing that. We're not going to merge the two. I mean, some of the features, obviously, are going to be, they'll share them, but it seems like Mac OS and iOS, I like Mac OS a lot better, personally. I just like it better.
Yeah.
So if they added a touchscreen MacBook Pro, that would be fine. That would be interesting. I don't think anybody's predicting that, but I mean, at some point, I think it could be coming. So let's go back to your web page here. So schedule maintenance performs, is that OS level?
How do you mean?
It says schedule maintenance, perform maintenance tasks such as clearing caches or restoring preferences on a schedule.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you can do a variety of different things, some, specific to apps, and also just kind of general system maintenance stuff.
Plug-in installers. I mean, you have such a wide variety of tools in this package. Plug-in installers for developers who use Pro Maintenance tools can easily create standalone installers for their plugins. I have no idea how you would do that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a plugin developer, but if I made a plugin, I don't know how to make it into a package that, there you go. Plugin installers right there. Cross NLE support. You buy the one package, and then it supports Avid Media Composer, Avid Symphony, Adobe Premiere Pro, and Final Cut Pro 10, and Final Cut Pro Studio.
Still, yeah. The older version.
How many people are using the Studio? I mean, I know some are because I see it occasionally.
A few still, but there's a lot of overlap between Final Cut Pro 7 and Premiere because Premiere supports Final Cut Pro 7 XML files.
Right. So I had to. Speaking of that, what did I do recently? I was digitizing some old VHS tapes that I had when I went to London in the 80s, I think it was. Yeah, it was the 80s. And I had these old VHS C, the little small ones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to digitize these? I want to pull them up. I had to go back to Final Cut Pro 7 on my old cheese grater downstairs in the studio. Yeah. So I went down there and got downloaded drivers for my AJAIO HD, which I still have, which takes all kinds of analog formats in and makes it into ProRes, and see what's the latest version of the OS I could have and all that. And it worked. It worked fine. Then I just put them on a USB hard drive and bring them up here and do my editing or whatever. But it worked. But I had to go back myself to Final Cut Pro 7. it's a strange beast after being on 10 all these years. But I
Right.
liked Final Cut Pro 7. I really, really liked it.
Yeah, yeah. I have very fond memories of it.
All right, so let's go back to the next group of tools. This is all within one package. Autosave
That's right, yeah.
Manager. View, restore, and manage your auto-saved editorial projects from a single app. Now, is that, once again, Final Cut Pro and Premiere both?
And Avid, yeah.
And Avid, all three.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when compressor repair, that was, for a long time, it needed repairing. Does it still need repairing?
Occasionally, a lot less than it did. It was very finicky in the past. Now it's a lot better, but still from time to time, it can screw up.
So this is a handy one, Corrupt Clip Finder. So does that do that inside of Final Cut or the media on in the Finder?
You can get it to scan an XML file.
Oh, you can.
And it'll scan all the clips in that XML file, or you can just give it a folder.
Okay, so in other words, if you use the XML file, it would use the XML to locate the files in the Finder.
Yeah.
And then it goes
and that's
back.
useful. Oh, sorry. And that's useful if you have, just huge amounts of media, but you only need to scan what's in the project.
And that's true. That's very true. So Corrupt Clip Finder, it actually finds, how does it do that? How does it find a corrupt clip? Does it play it back somehow or just?
Yeah.
Oh, it does.
Basically, we have this helper tool. It's like a separate app, and it tries to play it. And if it crashes, then we kind of interrupt and we stop it displaying a crash dialog on the screen. But we record that as being corrupt.
I see. So it actually starts to play it. That I was wondering, how does it tell it's corrupt?
Muted.
Yeah, there you go. And then CS Repair repairs a common Adobe Premiere problems. I always, when people, as a joke, when people talk about going from Premiere to Final Cut Pro, I have this mock-up of an Apple Tech Note that I've made. And it says, after using after using Premiere Pro, please wash your hands before you open up a Final Cut Pro library. But I made it look like one of Apple's. I even have a link that doesn't go anywhere, and I'll post it every once in a while. So CS Repair, Final Cut Pro Studio Remover, I remember that. Housekeeping, trashes over 100 different caches to free up disk space and troubleshoot problems. So the 100 different caches, is that once again Mac OS level?
That's more we have two tools. We have System Toolkit, which is more at the operating system level.
Okay.
And Housekeeper is more at the app level.
Okay.
So it's trashing things like thumbnail caches, render caches, and so on.
I see.
You can select what it trashes and what it keeps.
So does it also use the XML to locate these things? For Final Cut, for example.
I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it. Oh no, actually no. It uses Spotlight to find them. That's right.
Oh, Spotlight. Okay.
Yeah.
So media composer repair. We don't care about that. We know that needs repairs. Salvage media. Restore corrupt or unreadable video files. How effective is that? What percentage of the time does that work, would you say?
There's a lot of situations where all of the video and audio data is there in the file just fine. It's just kind of the surrounding metadata and structure that's screwed up. So if it's one of those situations, then you stand a decent chance of getting it back. It's only if the situations where it doesn't do as well, if your hard drive totally dies and you go to like a repair center or something, or you format your hard drive and then try to use a tool to get it
Right.
back.
Right.
Because then you often get junk data mixed in with the file. So you have the valid video data, and then every so often there's a lot of junk data from a different file, and those are the ones that are less likely to be successful.
So, but you do have a lot of success with it. I know I used to use, was it one for QuickTime files, or is this now this immediate salvage? Is that what it's doing?
We have another tool in the suite called Qt Repair.
Repair,
and
yeah.
Basically, Qt Repair will try to do kind of a mild repair. If there's not much wrong with the file, it'll try to keep the file intact.
I see.
Media salvage is more of the brute force option. It just completely ignores the structure and just brings in the raw video data and creates a new file around it.
Now, here's the thing, John. That single app is worth the price of admission, because if you lose a file and this can save it, that's it. I mean, I don't know how many times I haven't had the problem of losing a file, but I've deleted stuff before. I just did it recently. I have my Mac Pro. I have a 2 terabyte NVMe SSD, and I don't know exactly. I was trying to make a partition for Big Sur, so I didn't have to dual boot, and somehow I erased the entire 2 terabytes. And wow. It was my own fault. It had to have been. I was repartitioning, wasn't paying attention when I deleted something. Backblaze. Took me a while, but I said, wait a minute, I got Backblaze. I went on Backblaze and I got all the files. Now,
that's great.
Backblaze is like $60 a year.
Yeah.
Now it takes a while to download 2 terabytes, obviously. It took me days. I had to check. Once again, I used my database to check the drive before I erased it. I had a list of all the things that were on it. Then I went in Backblaze, found all the things, downloaded them back, and then put them back on the drive. Now, the Backblaze NeoFinder, the Backblaze version that I had was the 30-day. It would keep files for 30 days, right? Since I had that happen to me, I upped it to 1 year, because I said, wow. Because that even copies any attached drive, even my RAIDs with media and stuff. I mean, it takes a while.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, any attached drive that I plug into my Mac Pro, you can choose to back it up in the cloud. But that was a lifesaver. I just said, do I have anything that I missed? I usually back up everything multiple places, but Backblaze really saved my bacon that time. So, big proponent of that. Plugin manager, we talked about that, and your little trick of putting it into another folder if you disable it, which is very, very clever. Preference manager, does that do Final Cut Pro preferences too?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Does it? So in Final Cut Pro, we do just hold the Option and Command key when you launch Final Cut Pro, but I've noticed that it puts a copy of the files on the desktop. Did you know that?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it does. So it takes them out of the user library or the library preferences, takes them out of there, and puts a copy on the desktop.
Oh, that's handy as a backup.
Yeah, at least it used to. I don't know if it's doing it in 10.4.9 and 10.4.10, but they used to. Because I see, what is this folder doing here? And I go inside and there's my preferences. Yeah, it's a backup, exactly. So this version, it does works with Final Cut 10 too.
Yeah, I mean, the trashing feature is less useful since they built that into the app. But what's really handy is the backing up and restoring. And if you install it, it actually backs up your preferences once a week, just on a schedule in the background.
Okay.
So, if you kind of lose all your preferences, and by preferences, I mean a lot of other things like your keyboard layout, and there are a lot of preferences stored in other files, not just the main preference file. And Preference Manager backs up all of those as well.
That's fantastic.
Mhm.
I didn't know it did keyboard layouts too, because I keep
Oh
mine
yeah.
in.
Mhm.
I keep a copy of mine for Logic, Final Cut in Dropbox, so I can access it anywhere. But
Mhm.
one of the things I use customized keyboard shortcuts. And some people
Mhm.
say they don't like it because you go on another computer. The heck with that. Just download them from the
Yeah.
internet, carry them on a USB flash drive. Well, here's the thing, John. When I'm editing, I pay attention to what keyboard shortcuts I use the most. Okay, so for me, it's JK and L, zoom in, zoom out, deselect is a big one, and there's a couple of other ones. I map all those to single key shortcuts. I don't want to do Apple plus and Apple minus, command key. I have single shortcuts next to JK and L to zoom in and zoom out of the timeline. Don't have to look at anything. Because my muscle memory is not, I have to look at the keyboard to do command plus and command minus. I'm not sure which keys I'm hitting.
Right.
So I do, the more I do something, the more I will map it to single key shortcuts. Of course, you have the default. You can't change the default. They make you make a copy. So you always have that if you're going to be teaching a class. It's no big deal. Reload it from the internet or whatever, or on a flash drive. But the other thing that I do is I try to make keyboard shortcuts across Logic and Final Cut Pro as much as possible the same. So for example, in Logic, I have JK and L to go forward, stop, and go backwards, reverse. It's not there natively, but that's what I use. So I made the shortcuts in Logic, and I also have the zoom in and zoom out, same keys, and the deselect, also the same keys. So that would be, I didn't realize it kept the keyboard. I mean, your preference manager did keyboard layouts.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Fantastic.
Yeah, there's a whole range of stuff. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head.
No, you don't have to. That's worth the price of repair. I mean, of the price of the package right there. Both of those two. Plugin Manager as well. I have to go try Plugin Manager. I didn't realize it did that. Because is it gonna crash when I upload 1,000 plugins? Not 1,000 plugins, but I have about hundreds of plugins, but the variations of each one, it goes up to over 1,000 different items.
It should be fine. It just might take a bit of a while to load. That's all.
Okay. Project repair, is that also for Final Cut Pro 10 projects?
Yeah, Final Cut Pro 10 and Premiere projects.
What are you seeing for repairing in Final Cut Pro 10? It's just something in the XML file, once again, or what is corrupting? What are you repairing typically for 10?
I can't remember off the top of my head. Sorry.
Does it use the XML file? That's what it repairs?
No. We have a separate tool for that. It's actually repairing the actual database.
Oh, the database. So, I mean, what do you do? You drop a you drop a project onto this icon, or a Final Cut Pro project, or the library? What do you do to activate it?
It would be the actual physical project file. And we changed the open dialog so that it displays packages as folders, so you can actually go into the package to get at the actual
I see
physical file.
Yeah, that's what Pathfinder does too. It's exactly what it does. So that's really cool. So I'm going to show you my screen right now. This was what I'm looking at. This is my setup for all the different things that I do. So I have the browser open here, then I have this window over here where we are, audio over here. This is the scenes. It's like different scenes I switch to. This is the comments and reactions. This is like a Photoshop layer file. I can layer things in and out. Right now I have this one circle of me, one circle of you, then the web page in the background. This is what I do, and then there's good old Restream IO. But that's what I see the whole time. I like showing that to people. People have no idea what's going on. So
that's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff, and I've honed it to pretty much to a science to do these things. And then something will change. A quick fix performs common troubleshooting tasks with one button or key press. System toolkit and XML repair. So the project is the database, you said, right? Project repair. And then the XML is a completely different thing. Corrupt?
Yeah.
Final Cut Pro 7 and Final Cut Pro 10. Because their two XMLs are not similar, are they? 10 and 7?
No, completely different.
That's what I thought. And there's your different screenshots and videos. You have a lot of videos to tell people how to use that. That is a great, great package. I highly recommend people getting it. Listen, when they see people say, "Oh, my media is corrupt," I say, "Well, try this tool." Do you have is there a trial version of it?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So they can actually try it. And then if it works, just don't even think twice about it. Pro Maintenance Tools. And your other ones, Pro Media Tools, works on specifically media, obviously from the media. Organize your projects. So organize your projects. Is this doing it for Final Cut Pro 10?
We bundle post haste with that suite.
Okay.
That's what that's referring to.
I see. Improve DSLR workflows. Offload and verify your media. Tag it with timecode and metadata. Conform slow motion footage. So for Final Cut Pro, would you drop the media into this and it would do all these things before you get it taken into Final Cut?
Yeah, with the conforming, people, it's basically, I don't know if you ever used the conforming feature of Cinema Tools back in the day. Did you ever use that?
I had used that a couple of times. It does a frame rate conform and things, right?
Yeah, it's instant because it's not, it's not transcoding everything. It's changing the metadata to change the speed of the file. So essentially, now that Cinema Tools is dead and you can't even launch it anymore, that's kind of a modern version of that.
I see. I see. So manage chapters and markers. Mass modify markers and convert marker lists to QuickTime chapters.
That one is currently Premiere only at the moment.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, how are you doing that in Final Cut Pro 10? I have no idea. Render alerts. Get alerted when we render or export finishes. That goes to as a text file or email, I presume?
Yeah, you get a lot of options. In the screenshot, it's a notification, but you get different options. Like you can have it play a sound, you can have it send you an email, you can have it send you a text message.
Okay. Manage metadata, modify time code. Something else I've heard people ask about. Can I recorded, I want to do a 0 or for 1 hour. So this, once again, you would do at the Finder level, I presume, modify time code if I wanted to modify time code of clips?
Yeah, it's at the file level. So it doesn't matter what app you bring it into. Okay.
Clean up timelines. Now you're not doing it in Final Cut Pro 10, are you?
Yeah, there's a Final Cut Pro 10 version of that.
Really?
We have a Final Cut Pro 7 XML version which does it for Premiere, and we have a Final Cut Pro 10 version.
So what happens in Final? Go ahead.
Well, not every feature is supported by the Final Cut Pro 10 version. I think it doesn't collapse because Final Cut Pro kind of has a different paradigm when it comes to tracks. So the collapsing, it doesn't collapse because I'm not sure how you figure out how to collapse. You
would have to do compound clips or something, right?
Yeah.
And
but it can do other things like removing disabled clips that are cluttering up the timeline and things like that.
Okay. A batch rename, which I do once again. Since I work I don't do every project in the Finder, but I do a lot of my bigger projects. I want to rename stuff, so I do batch rename. But I do it in the Finder before I import it into Final Cut. Before I import it, and then I just click off leave files in place. So this batch rename, of course, you can do the batch rename inside of Final Cut Pro 10 itself, but I want it at the Finder level. I want it at the Finder level.
Well, there are a lot of tools that can batch rename. I would say what's different about this one is that it's specifically designed with, media workflows in mind. And so where it's particularly useful is if you're dealing with image sequences. And so if you look in the screenshot, you can offset the frame numbers.
I saw that. I saw
you
that.
can renumber them. You can, if you end up with a gap, you know, there's a gap between the numbers. You can close the gap. You can detect gaps. You can renumber it from a different starting number. That's where it's really handy.
Very handy for image sequences. I absolutely can see that. Quality assurance. Now that is, I'm not sure what the heck that is. That's what you do if you're in a corporation. How does this work with Final Cut?
So we have a tool called Video Check, and it can detect things like audio peaks and flash frames. And we have broadcasters using it right now. Like one of the things one of our customers is using it for is, I think there's some kind of software or some device that they're using that kind of sometimes it screws up and you end up with a frame that's like a glitch.
Sure.
And they found it really handy for detecting those.
Right.
So before it goes to air, they just scan it through our software and it'll find those weird glitches if they ended up going in there somehow.
Auto transfer. This is for media cards?
Yeah. And what's handy about that is how customizable it is, particularly when it comes to things like metadata and the naming of folders. We've copied some features from post haste, just in terms of how the media gets organized on disk. You've got a lot of options, a lot of flexibility there.
Okay. Because I've used some other, I have my GH5, I have media cards. Other than that, I'm using my iPhone a lot, my iPhone 11 Pro Max. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock Eastern time, I get to order my iPhone 12 Pro Max. 5 a.m. Pacific, 8 a.m. Eastern. So I'm ready to go for people. Yeah, I got everything all preset up ready, just to hopefully just press one button. It just orders the darn thing. And you use the Apple card, you get 3% off. So why not do that? Edit detector. Scans video files to locate where edits and scene changes occur. Now that's, once again, is that the Finder level? It does it in the Finder?
Yeah, that's at the file level. And you can export that to a variety of different things. Like you can export the cut points as markers. You can export them as like individual subclips, or you can even re-export them as individual QuickTimes.
Really? It's individual QuickTime.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Because we can't even do that in Final Cut yet. I mean, I'd like to be able to take a sequence project, as they call the timeline, and just take all the clips, export them as individual clips with media handles. That's one of the other things I want to do, but can't do that yet. Project, there's post haste, of course. Project overview, show all media within a project, and batch edit effects and markers.
I would say that's Premiere only right now.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I'm not sure how that would do that Final Cut.
What I've used that for in the real world is things like, let's say I have, this was back in the Final Cut 7 days, but like I had a sequence where I'd done color correction for editorial,
right? And
I needed to get rid of that before it went on to proper color.
Okay, right.
And so like removing it from every single clip would be really tedious.
Yes.
So what's great about that is that I could go in and you can search for all the effects, and so I can just literally type in color corrector 3-way, because that's what it's called in Final Cut 7.
Right.
And then I can just literally just select all and hit delete, and it deletes all those effects in one go.
Wow, that's really handy for, like you said, going out for colorists and stuff. QuickTime edit QuickTime files to manage tracks, metadata, chapters, and encoding settings. So tracks, audio tracks, sometimes once in a while I'll get so if I have one of those weird QuickTime files that has 8 audio tracks and 6 of them are not being used, I can delete those 6. Yeah.
Yep.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And that works with the new version of QuickTime 10, or whatever it is?
We're a little late, but we've got a version. It's almost done.
Okay.
That'll be coming out pretty soon. Yeah.
Okay, great. And everything works on Catalina? You have?
Sorry, I meant
QuickTime 10. Yeah.
Sorry, I meant the AV Foundation in Catalina. So QC Edit currently doesn't work on Catalina, but all of the other apps do. And
I see.
As I say, that'll be coming out very soon.
Oh, I see. And what about Big Sur then?
The same, really.
Same. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I like Big Sur. I'm on the public beta. Like I said, I dual boot back and forth. But there's some things that aren't running in Big Sur yet that I use all the time. There's about 4 or 5 apps. I don't know. I think Ecamm works, the software that I'm using. I think that works now. But there's some other apps that I have that aren't working yet. But once again, every year they release the version of Mac OS at the iPhone event, typically in September.
I can't. Oh yeah, they all come out at the same time. So like iOS and WatchOS and tvOS and macOS, they all generally come out at the same time.
This year it's November and we still haven't seen Big Sur. So probably Tuesday, I presume.
Maybe it's something to do with the launch of the Apple Silicon. It must be.
Right. And Apple this year, which I like, twice this year, they've pre-announced a new version of Final Cut Pro. At WWDC, they showed us an unreleased version of Final Cut running on Apple Silicon, which was 10.4.9. I presume that's what came out after WWDC. When they did their iPhone event, the iPhone does 10-bit Dolby Vision HDR. It records it, and you can edit it on the iPhone. So you can't have that on the iPhone and not be able to do that in Final Cut Pro 10. That completely doesn't make sense. So they had pre-announced coming to Final Cut Pro 10 later this year at the iPhone event, and it was in October, I guess. Coming to Final Cut Pro 10 later this year. Okay, well, that's a new version of Final Cut. You're not going to add that feature without updating the app, so that's the new version. I'm presuming that's going to be during either this Tuesday or the following week when they have the Final Cut Pro Global Summit.
Oh, is Apple presenting there?
At the Global Summit, yes.
Oh, that's great.
Here's the interesting thing about that. Not only is Apple they have their own Apple Day. Thursday is Apple Day. All the other first off, it's 7 days this time, not just 6 days. I mean, not just 3 or 4 days. Typically, when you're live, you go to different rooms and watch the sessions. But there was like 2 or 3 days of 6 to 8 hours per day, 2 or 3 different tracks running simultaneously. This time, it's virtual. This time, it's 7 days. They're going from Monday all the way through to Sunday, Thursday being Apple Day. It's all virtual. Apple Day, from what they said last week, is going to be live from the Spaceship campus.
Oh, wow.
So they say the Apple team, they don't call them the Final Cut Pro team, they call them the Apple Pro Apps team or whatever.
Yeah.
Is going to be presenting live, not pre-recorded. They're not doing a presentation that's pre-recorded like WWDC was, like the iPhone event was. Live from the new campus, which we've never seen them at before. And there's going to be, so live, I presume there's going to be interaction. We'll be able to ask questions or whatever, hopefully, to people that pay.
I guess if they're doing it live, I mean, would that suggest that something's being announced?
Well, it would be appropriate to let the Final Cut Pro team announce the new version of Final Cut, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, but they might announce it the week before at the Apple event. They might show it, and then the Final Cut Pro team will go into a deeper dive. Or they might wait. I mean, they might wait. Who the heck knows? But I think they're probably, since they want to sell Apple Silicon, what better way to sell Apple Silicon than Final Cut Pro, right? I mean,
right, exactly, yeah.
So that's what I expect. Yeah, so Apple's presenting on Thursday. It's not going to be public. It never is. You have to Buy the package. It's only $199, and you get access to all 7 days of clips of all the presentations plus the Apple Day. So that'll be interesting. So let's go ahead and timeline tricks. What the heck is that?
Well, that's the app that we were talking about when it mentioned about sort of collapsing clips and removing.
Okay.
Yeah, unused tracks and things like that. Yeah, some of those paradigms don't work with a trackless NLE, but it still has some features for Final Cut.
Right. One of the things, there's a lot of features that LumaFusion has that I wish Final Cut has. So, for example, LumaFusion in the viewer, you have the viewer and you have the play control, but at the bottom of the viewer is a mini version of the entire timeline.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, just like the MacBook Pro has, right? The MacBook Pro, the Touch Bar. Yeah. And that would be one of the very, very handy features that I wish Final Cut would have, an overview, and you can touch it anywhere, and it will jump to that place. You can get a selection that'll zoom into that place. So that's something I'd like to see Final Cut Pro have. So have you worked with Final Cut Pro 10.4.9, the new version that came out in August with the proxy workflow and stuff? Have you worked with that?
Not specifically the proxy workflow.
Okay. Does that add any ideas to make any kind of an app for that? To proxy? Because that's a big deal for Final Cut Pro users.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about apps. That certainly might be useful for our cloud platform, Collaborate.
Right. Oh, yeah. Let's go over Collaborate, of course.
Yeah.
So Collaborate is your cloud. It's a collaboration platform to collaborate with other people. Let me bring that up. That's collaborate.tv.
With a K.
What is it? Yes, with a K. Yes.
With a K. Yeah.
But it's .tv, not .com. Let's go over that. 'Cause that's when we were talking on Twitter, I was talking on Twitter and I mentioned an app that I was using, but I only got it specifically for transcription because it was inexpensive. At the time, I think it was $10 a month, but I had unlimited transcription. Now it's $12 a month and it has a 10-hour limit. And you pinged me on Twitter and says, hey, Collaborate's got unlimited transcription. So the cloud workflow platform for Pro Video. So tell us about this a little bit while I'm scrolling through the page.
Okay, so Collaborate is really a platform primarily for sharing files with your team members and getting their feedback on it. And then you can bring that feedback straight back into your editing software again. But it does a lot more than video because it'll support any type of file. So you can use it for backing up your projects or sharing final deliverables. There's a lot of flexibility. I'd say one of the key features is called workflows. And if you've ever used Automator on the Mac, there are a lot of similarities.
Yes, I have.
And basically, you can make it so that it does certain things, when you upload a file or if someone approves a file, you can do different things like you can color code things, you can move them to different folders automatically, you can put watermarks on them, and you can send out links to a client. So what you could do, for instance, is you could set up a workflow where your team has to all review something. And then once they've all approved it, then it automatically gets sent out as a link to the client for final approval.
That's fantastic. That's really fantastic. And there's workflows. And then we have transcription.
Yeah.
So because typically what I do is I just strip out the audio file and just send that up so I don't, waste bandwidth going back and forth. Because I just edit audio for like my podcast. I'll do a rough cut edit with the transcription, and then I'll export that and bring that into Logic, which I do all my audio work in. So can you use audio with this transcription service as well?
Oh yeah. You can upload audio files. That'd be fine.
So the question I asked you earlier about the proxy workflow, So Final Cut now, you can make a proxy-only library, and then you can open that library and link back to original media. So if you have a lot of files, it seems to me that you would do a proxy upload to Collaborate. Would that make sense?
Yeah.
And that way,
yeah, we have tools like Collaborate Transfer, and sometimes I'm on set as well. I sometimes DIT as well on everything else.
Okay.
And I put all the files in the cloud for the director to watch and so on in the DP. And the way I do that is we have a tool called Collaborate Transfer, and so that will that transcodes client side. So I just give it the original media files, and it transcodes proxies, and then just uploads the proxies.
Oh, I
see.
I
didn't have to spend ages uploading 50 gigabyte media files. I just end up with the proxies.
So if I make proxies in Collaborate, can I link them back up to Final Cut Pro?
Off the top of my head, as I say, I haven't specifically used the Final Cut Pro proxy workflow.
Okay.
So I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head on
does
that.
Does it rename the original media files, the proxy version? In Collaborate?
It sort of tidies up the name a bit, but you can switch that off so that it keeps it 100% as it was.
So you were way far ahead of the curve with this. 2013, I mean, you were way far ahead of the curve with collaboration in the cloud, right?
Oh, yeah. And there were some other services that existed. Collaborate was the first to have apps and to integrate with NLEs and to have, extensions on the desktop and things like that.
Right. So that's doing very well for you, I presume.
Yeah. It used to be that Pro Maintenance Tools was kind of our flagship product, and Collaborate has very much overtaken it at this point. Right.
So the next time I work with my friend Brad Olson, we're going to do, I always tease him about doing the new Off the Tracks 2 with the new version of Final Cut, because I was a co-editor with him on the original version, and we didn't, he shipped me the original hard drive with majority of media on. It was 250 terabytes, gigabytes or whatever. And I had that here, but then we also would add stuff back and forth, of course, new stuff. And then we just share XML files, basically. That was years ago. That was years ago. This would have been better. This would have been much better.
As I say, I still do work in the industry for things like coloring. And it's really handy. It's become an essential part of my workflow, certainly.
Absolutely.
And my own dog fooding of it, that definitely helps the product as well, I think.
Right.
Because it's very easy to kind of come up with a big feature off the top of your head, but it's not till you try to use something for an actual project that you realize, that small thing doesn't work very well.
Right.
Sometimes things are all about the small things.
No, absolutely. We give our suggestions to the Final Cut Pro team all the time. One of the suggestions we gave is more options with working with proxy media. All these years, they gave you no options. It's either ProRes LT proxy, ProRes proxy, which was half the resolution or quarter resolution, I guess. So when you're working with a 4K file, was it half or quarter? I can't remember. I think I think it was half. So I think working with a 4K file, you get a 2K proxy. I don't want a 2K proxy. Now you have options. Plus you can use H.264, which is really nice. You don't not just stuck with not stuck, but just stuck with ProRes. So we have a couple of comments here. Does John have a student discount for your products?
Yeah, but it's not available directly on the site. But if you email us, we can set that up.
There you go. That's fantastic. Torgrim says, with an FCPX upgrade, hopefully not far away, will any of the plugin developers be given any insight from Apple as what to come? Torgrim, they can't say if they know what's coming up. I mean, that's not going to happen. I mean, I could do from Apple on this hotline phone every once in a while, but I can't ever say what's going on with anything that I hear. But anyway, no developer can't say anything if they know anything. I mean, of course, some developers they know what's coming up. Of course. I'll give you a perfect example. If you want to know some of the people who have early access to Final Cut Pro, right? Watch who puts out videos as soon as an update happens, right? Go on Twitter, go on YouTube. If they put up an update within an hour of Final Cut Pro coming out, a big update, of course they had access to it in advance. It's not that's the part's not rocket science, but anyway, we're all excited. The Final Cut Pro community is excited. Next Tuesday and then the following week for the Final Cut Pro Global Summit. New version of Final Cut's going to happen some point between next Tuesday and the following week. So, and they had 10.4.9 at the end of August. They've never done a major feature update in August before. Any version of Final Cut that I could find in August, not feature update. They've had maybe a bug fix. So that was unusual. Then they had 30 days later, they had 10.4.10, which is the bug fix for 10.4.9. So now it's either going to be 10.4.11 or it's going to be 10.5, or some people say they might jump to Final Cut Pro 11 because Mac OS is jumping to 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at least with Apple Silicon it is. So some people were saying that maybe Final Cut Pro would jump to 11. I don't know if the big version, whether it's 10.5 or 10 or Final Cut Pro 11, is ready yet. I don't know. I haven't got sense of that. But we're going to get a new version of Final Cut, and it's going to have new features. I don't know how many, but they've already said it's going to have Dolby Vision 10-bit HDR support, which is going to be interesting. I was talking to Mark Bach last week, and he's a colorist from LA, and he was saying, well, there's got to be controls in Final Cut to control some of these things, to adjust or whatever. So Torgrim says he'll have a talk with Steve Martin. That's because, of course, Ripple Training always has videos out within seconds of their update, but other people have too. I'm not going to mention any names. You can go on Twitter, you can go on YouTube and see who released versions, tutorials, a walkthrough of the new version of Final Cut 10.4.9 as soon as it was released. Those people have access to that version. Are you excited about Final Cut Pro? Is that your editor of choice when you edit?
Well, the problem
is, you can be
honest. As I say, I don't have anything against Final Cut. I just haven't had a lot of opportunities where I can really use it because a lot of the time, as I say, like I post supervise in color. So I'm getting a project from someone else.
Okay.
And a lot of the time that's coming from Premiere. So I just keep it in whatever app it came in.
Do you use
just converting stuff? It never
works right 100%.
No.
Do you use Resolve for color?
Yeah.
That's what you use? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Seems like everybody uses that.
Yeah, it's really good.
So, John, it's been very delightful having you. Anytime you want to come on, when you got a new product or whatever, please just text me, email me, and we'll bring you on for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or in this case, an hour and a half. Hour and 30.
Thanks, Richard.
Absolutely. I use your products. An hour and 34 minutes, 54 seconds. So we're doing good. I think we covered everything, right? We didn't miss anything?
Yeah, I think so. No, I didn't miss anything.
Okay. In that case, we are going to sign off Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live. Mr. John Chappell from Digital Rebellion and Collaborate.tv. Both.
With a K.
With a K. Collaborate. I'm sorry. I forget that. Collaborate.
No worries.
I kept thinking you were saying UK. I said, no, I know you're from the UK. No, I understand. Collaborate with a K.
Yeah.
Yes. Collaborate with a K.tv, not .com. Mm-hmm. And we got the comment here. Just joking. looking fantastic. Looking forward to the summit. 2019 was fantastic. I really enjoyed the seminars, and people were so kind to her. To a Norwegian stranger, Torgrim contacted me prior to coming to the summit last year, and he says he's not sure if, camaraderie is already established from people there. I said, Torgrim, listen, it's the friendliest group of people you've ever seen. The friendliest group, for the most part. There's a couple of maybe grumps. I don't care about them. I'm just teasing, of course. But I said, listen, come there. Get a hold of me. We'll go out to lunch. I'll meet you, introduce you to everybody. He was fine. It's a very, very friendly group of people, and I'm sure besides the seminars for the Global Summit this time, they also have social events. I don't know how they're going to do that. The summit usually has 150 people. I think the virtual one might be 200 or 300. I'm not sure how that works with you having social events with that many people. Whether you have a room you pop into or something, I have no. But it's not going to be available. Not going to be available online. You have to buy the package. It's $199. You can get 10% off if you use the code FCPRadio 10, all caps, 10% off. And it's well worth it. You're getting 7 days of camaraderie and training and stuff, and you get the Apple Day. To me, that Apple Day is the big, 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 big event. It's always one of my favorite things going to the Creative Summit. All right?
Thanks, Richard. Really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Anytime, just hit me up and we'll